Hi guys, I'm sorry I'm a few minutes behind. I was doing what I always do and got in the middle of cooking something and was suddenly like, oh, right, I must have something I need to be doing now. So, yeah. Hi, welcome to the live. It's Tuesday evening, and I'm glad to be here with you to answer questions, do whatever. So, proceed. I was taking pictures for some I did a little video of making some bear claw type thing, so I'm going to put that together, and then the kitchen is always kind of a wreck. I am like a hurricane. Anybody else? Anybody like when you go in the kitchen when you cook anything at all complicated, it's just like, whoa, what has happened? Like a bit of a whirling dervish. Anyway, um, just like any good daughter, I blame my mother. She was so nice to me when I was growing up, I loved to cook, and she hated to cook. She didn't mind doing dishes, so she would always do the dishes whenever I was cooking. So she'd be in the kitchen, we'd be talking, I'd be cooking, she'd be doing the dishes. I have no sous chef anymore. Well, Eric will do it. He's better. He's good at stuff like that too, but he's not here, so I had to clean up. Anyway, I am spoiled. Yes, I am. Hey, Teresa from Tennessee, and hey, Susan, good to see you. Hey, Marnie. Hey, Brandy. Hey, Leslie. Jean, nice to see you join. I'm here. I'm a little warm. It's warm today. Warm today here in the Bay, but I had a lovely walk. I saw that the temperature was going up a lot around 1 o'clock today, so I took my walk in the morning, which was good. Hey, Florida. Nice to have you. Susan, thank you for confessing that you are also a messy cook. I appreciate having some company. Hey, New York. Nice to see ya. And is there another Rochester? I don't know. I assume that's because I only know one in New York. But I've recently thought about getting Botox, but I don't know if I'd still be able to do this with the Botox. And so maybe I won't, because it's my signature move. Anyway, hey, Helen. Nice to see you. You'll know if I stop wiggling my eyebrows so much what I did. Um, Marnie says, I like eating ketovore because it's so simple, helps me be a less messy cook. Totally. Some steaks, not a big deal. Hey, Kim. Hey, Kim. Wow, you're Carol. Hi, Carol. I'm Kim. Glad to be here with you. And so, what do you want me to talk about today? I didn't see any questions yet, just a lot of halos. Um, Utah. Hello, Utah. What have I been up to? High blood pressure. Teresa, what would you like to talk about? High blood pressure specifically. So, high blood pressure, the primary cause of high blood pressure seems to be uh, high insulin levels. High insulin levels are going to lead to high circulating sort of insulin. Hello. And then that will bump up sort of your body's recycling of sodium. It will cause you to have a higher blood pressure. The majority of people, it appears, they go keto or they get healthy in any way that lowers their insulin. Keto does it really quickly. And then as that comes down, they begin to excrete more sodium, and the blood pressure just seems to drop and drop and drop. So, not terribly, but like go down. So, but then there are some people who keto doesn't fix the higher blood pressure thing. It's the minority of people, but it does happen because the cause of their particular version of high blood pressure wasn't insulin related. And so that's going to have more complex reasons. Um Yvonne says, how to restart keto. Okay, so let's talk a little bit about restarting keto. Um, Basically, when people fall off of keto, so what does it mean to be keto, right? You start keto, you get into ketosis, and then you proceed, right? So if you are saying you need to restart keto, a question would be, how long were you off? If it's a couple of days, just eat the way you know how to eat on keto. If it's been a long time, or it's just really hard for you to get restarted, I usually say just eat a lot of fatty cuts of meat, eat a lot of bacon, ribeye. Oh, you've been off for 6 months. Okay. So just plan on it kind of a month of this, right? You are gonna um, eat bacon and eggs, fatty cuts of meat. Focus on eating protein and fat, keeping the carbs as low as possible. If you need something a little sweet, a little splash of cream in your coffee, you can do, maybe some cocoa mixed with cream, to make kind of a chocolate mousse kind of thing. But keep the carbs as minimal as you can. A few leafy greens are totally fine, but focus on being satisfied from eating high fat, high fat and high protein together. So both a good amount of protein and a good amount of fat. Do that when you're hungry, and when you're not hungry, don't eat. And just don't focus on dieting, don't focus on reducing how much you eat. Focus on, getting back on the keto train, getting the carbs out of your system, getting on a pattern, and then you can refine. So a couple of weeks of that, up to a month of that, it should be able to kind of reset your system to get back into ketosis better, to be happier in ketosis. And then from there, you can tweak your macros, how you want to do it, what you want to do it. But I find being hungry or feeling highly restricted at the beginning of keto kind of to be one of the worst things you can do. It makes it the hardest. Lisa says, hi New Zealand. High blood pressure back to normal after 7 months on keto. Yep, totally common. Totally common. Angie said, I'm doing keto now, 5 weeks down, 19 pounds. Congratulations. You started at 294. So hold on, I'm going to do math. And I used to be good at math, but I'm not good at math on camera. My first like job was I taught people how to take the SAT. And when I took the SAT, we couldn't use a calculator. So we had to be kind of good at math. Okay, so now they can use calculators. Shocking. Let's see. So I'm gonna take off about 8 pounds of that for water weight, just making a guess. So let's say about 11 pounds, 5 weeks, 11 pounds divided by five. That's, probably a fat loss somewhere around 2-ish pounds a week. No, you should not be losing faster than that. That is excellent rate of loss. I understand that when we start a little higher, we can often feel, we want to lose a little more per week, and that's totally normal. Um, Generally speaking, and the heavier we are, the more wiggle room we have here. But in general, I don't tend to want to. Sorry, I keep stopping myself. There's an initial water weight loss the first week or so. So I don't count that in my calculations. But once you're in about a week to 10 days, you've lost all that initial water weight. You've dropped all that glycogen storage. Um, and so from that point forward, I don't like to see people losing more than about 1% of their body weight a week. So if at that point, let's say you dropped, let me round it off. So let's say you dropped 9 pounds that first week, and in the second week you dropped 2 pounds, right? Um, that 2 pounds is more kind of the common rate for you. Now, weighing your starting weight was 294. So that means what's 1% of that? 1% of that would be just under 3 pounds, right? 2.9. That's the max I'd want to see somebody averaging a week, who started at 294, right? So if somebody started at 194, I'd want them to stay under 1.9, right? That's 1% a week. Now, does that mean you should be losing 1% a week? No. A 0.5% is totally awesome rate of loss. The reason I like to point this out is people from keto stuff, because I think people, what they end up doing is they factor in that first week of water weight loss and are like, and then I lost 30 pounds. And then they're like, okay, I'm going to extrapolate. So 30 pounds times 3. And they're like, okay, in a year, I should be able to lose 797 pounds, right? It's like crazy. You're like, no. No, that your body doesn't want to work that way. While it's true at the beginning you can lose at a faster rate, that is a very respectable clip, Angie. Um, so no, you shouldn't be down more by now. That's my answer. The reason now, like I said, we have more wiggle room when we're bigger. When we're over, 50, 60% body fat, we have more wiggle room for sure. But once we start getting leaner and leaner and leaner, the reason we are careful about the rate of loss is too fast a rate of loss will result in more loss of lean body mass. And we want to avoid that at all costs. So a reasonable rate of loss is a better idea than a quick rate of loss. Long term, your metabolism will be healthier, you will be healthier, you will have an easier time not regaining the weight, you'll have an easier time keeping that weight off. It's a win-win-win. So slow and steady wins the race. 2 pounds a week on average for you is very respectable. Okay. Dusty says, been ketovore for quite a while. I ate nothing but beef and salt for a week before having my lab drawn. Ferritin and sodium were low. Surprised me. Any thoughts on that? Ferritin. It would depend what you. Well, okay. So were you supplementing salt beyond what you were putting on your meat? Because it is, unless you were eating a lot of things like processed meat, like bacon and things, I would expect that sodium is actually probably going to go down in that scenario. It's easier to salt up a ton of different types of foods. You can get away with actually, you put more salt on vegetables than meat, really. I mean, even though you put a lot on meat when you think about it in total. The other thing is things like salad dressings or recipes, dairy products, all sorts of things that are different than just meat. They inherently have more sodium in them. So, in terms of ferritin, very much depends what your iron. What was your iron low as well? Because ferritin taken in and of itself is not as useful as taken with iron, in terms of measured. I mean, not taken. All right. Hey, Sacramento. Tammy asked, have I set a date for my next group? Tammy, I was going to do one this month. Things got a little hectic. If people really want me to do another one this winter, I will. Maybe a small group for winter. Just PM me, private message me, and I'll keep you in the loop. Okay. Angie says, I lost 13 pounds the first week. So yeah, so after that you're losing at a pretty decent rate of what's it, 96, like around a pound and a half a week. That's totally reasonable. Now, I can't say you're doing it perfectly. I don't know all the details, but I'm certainly not I wouldn't be disappointed if I were you. But we can always tweak how we do things. I'm jumping around. Helen says, I'm on Wayfarin, so I'm trying to stay in my sweet spot with veggies so that my INR isn't messed up. Yeah, I know that can be difficult with blood thinners. Kevin says, went from 210 to 160 in 3 months. Blood pressure meds gone after decades. Fatty liver gone. Prediabetes gone. Health conditions gone. Congratulations, Kevin. Becky, what is a good way to do an iced coffee with a splash of heavy whipping cream? My iced coffee. It did not have heavy whipping cream in it. So what I usually do for my iced coffee is I will do iced coffee, and then I'll add either nut pods or almond milk, or I think this is macadamia nut milk. So those kinds of things. What is a good way just depends on how you like it. I like it a little lighter colored, so just a splash of cream would be probably not enough. I would want to add a lot of cream, and then that becomes sort of meal-like, and I don't necessarily want that. I like Lakanto has monk fruit drops that are really nice. Unfortunately, they're often sold out because people really like them, but they have like vanilla and chocolate flavored ones, and so I love those in my iced coffee. Gives it a little flavor with the sweetness. Cassie said, do I eat differently the week before my cycle? I don't. I actually maybe used to. Did I? So the week before your cycle, and by most people when they say that, just so we're on the same page, the week before you start your period, right? Because you're always on your cycle. It's a cycle. It goes around. But the start of your cycle, day one, is the day you start bleeding, right? So that's the start of your cycle. So the last day, the last week of my cycle beginning, by the way, people, I am anatomically correct, and I don't pull my punches on saying, and you all know women. Men watching, you'll be okay. Um, so, no. Did you know that the week before your cycle starts, the start of a new cycle, I'll say it that way, your metabolic rate goes up. It's actually a good week to lose weight if your hunger doesn't go up. But for almost everyone, that week your hunger hormones go nuts and you're hungrier. So I don't feel a need anymore to eat differently that week. There were times in my past where I would get hungrier. Um, I'm better now at acknowledging hunger, but really not having to act on it. Um, if I'm not tracking, though, I might have to pay more attention. But right now, I'm in a period, and for the several months, I've been in a period where I track really diligently. And because of that, I'm really conscious of what I'm eating and I don't eat unconsciously most of the time. Right. And so, no, but you could. So most people don't lose weight the week before their cycle starts because that increase in hunger, that increase in metabolic rate, they go together. Um, Means they eat more and they out eat the increase in metabolic rate that they have. And so some people gain weight that week instead of lose weight. Kim says keto 2 years, mostly carnivore over a year, great success and good health. But will I ever get over the sweetener addiction? I get into patterns of needing sweet and even stevia or diet soda stalls me. Okay, so you've confirmed that stevia and diet soda stalls you. I just wanted to say that not so poorly, but because a lot of people can totally get away with it, and I'm like, why are you torturing yourself? It's not a thing. But if you've confirmed that sweetener use stalls you, then I would say you have to just draw a line and say no. Like, you gotta be in control of that. The longer you go without it, the less it will matter to you. But for a lot of people, it calls their name. But, like, quite honestly, a lot of things call our name, right? I mean, I've never been a drug user, but I certainly like, my mom has never been a drug user. Smoker. She was a smoker, right? And she quit smoking 30 something years ago. If I asked her right now, do you want a cigarette? She would say, "Oh God, yes." Desperately. She still wants to smoke every day. She just doesn't smoke. Sometimes that's the way things go. So there you go. Sorry about that, but it's certainly easier than if it's in your house. Like, don't keep sweeteners in your house. Don't buy things that have sweeteners in them. Just stay away. It will hopefully be better over time. Carol says, I'm just about finished with sugar-free September 2 days ago. Yay. Congratulations. Lisa says, menopause has slowed down my weight loss, but I'm still going. Just have to watch any carbs. Yep. Susan says, will drinking a couple of Diet Cokes per day stall me? Not for everybody. It's person to person. I do just fine on sweeteners versus no sweeteners. There was a time when I was like, are these sweeteners a problem for me? And I tested and I went back and forth. If they stall you, for the most part, I've talked to Ben Bickman about this. I've talked to various people about this. Um, I really think that for the most part, when we stall from sweetener use, it is in fact that sweet taste ramps up our appetite. It becomes the opposite of an appetite suppressant. It becomes an appetite accelerant. And so then because of that, we tend to eat more and have problems losing weight. There are a lot of people that I totally respect in the keto community that talk about that insulin response from the sweetness causing weight loss problems. I just haven't seen that played out in the data yet. I'm not saying it isn't true. And so my recommendation for anyone who thinks that sweetener use is stalling them is go a month without sweeteners and see um, if they are more successful, and then they can maybe evaluate, do they think that they're more successful because there's just something inherent about sweeteners, or is it just that they ate more when they also use sweeteners, or was there no change? So experiment and find out. Um, yeah, that's what I would say to do. Hey, Ellen. Jackie says, not really keto related, but had surgery 3 weeks ago. And I was happy to see one of the recommendations during recovery was eating protein rich foods. Absolutely. That is one thing most doctors do seem to know. You need a high protein diet recovering from surgery. Absolutely. You need a high protein diet all the time, in my opinion, but you definitely need one recovering from surgery. What is protein? Protein is the macronutrient of structure. What has happened when we've had surgery? We've in some way damaged the structure. We have an incision. We have a disruption of our some organs, maybe, or skin, or whatever. So we need more protein because protein is our building block. It helps us rebuild our bodies. And if we don't have enough, we're going to suffer post surgery. Keto Bandito. Hey, Greensboro. Chelsea says, is it okay to eat nothing but meat and only eat veggies 4 times a week while nursing? So I have to preface this by saying I'm not a medical provider. I'm not a nutritionist. I'm not giving any medical advice. Definitely, nursing is its own thing. But I can tell you, I certainly know a lot of nursing moms who did very well carnivore. One thing that they definitely had to watch out for was getting plenty of sodium. Being very well hydrated, including lots of sodium, definitely does help milk supply. Um, you want to be careful just in general not to undereat while nursing. That can lead to problems for you and your milk supply as well, but also you, which you are important. Um, Hey, Knoxville. Hey, Patrice. November will be 17 years I quit smoking. I almost never have the urge to want one. My poor mom. I know, poor thing. She is it's fun. She's a funny one. I pick on my mom all the time. I love her dearly. She has two things in it happening at the same time. She has a highly addictive personality. So she gets very addicted to things. She is allergic to alcohol. So she got around that one. So she never became addicted to alcohol because she's actually allergic. Like a couple of sips and she's like out like a light, just gone, like passed out on the table. Just knocks her out. And she's not real into drugs. So caffeine is her drug of choice. Um Patrice says, just starting my new keto journey. Do I recommend I be concerned about my protein or fat intake? Well, so when you first start keto, here's how I'll say it. Protein is non-negotiable in any diet, right? So we need there are three macro. That's five. There are three macronutrients. There's fat, protein, and carbohydrates, right? Those are the three macronutrients that we're concerned with. Protein is for structure. We need protein to rebuild our cells, for all of our organs to work, for all of our cells to exist, because our body is constantly being broken down. We need to rebuild. So it's our building block, and we need protein for that. We need protein to maintain lean body mass. We need protein to maintain every part of our body mass. And then we need energy, and fat and protein. Fat and carbs are our two possible energy sources, fat and carbs. And so we on keto are reducing our carbs, right? We're reducing our carbs. So we need to bump up our fat to get energy from that in our diet. So protein is important on any diet. So, I find a lot of people when they first go keto were actually protein deficient to begin with. So they're like, wow, I'm focusing on protein way more than I ever have. Because quite honestly, before keto, how many of us were really all that concerned with our macros, right? I mean, I wasn't. And so protein is the most important on any diet. But then on a keto diet, because we're cutting out the carbs, fat becomes important. But there's no level of fat we have to hit. It's more protein for structure and to be healthy and for our body to work, and then fat for energy. So your fat intake is based mostly on your hunger, satiety, how do you feel, how are you functioning, whereas protein is more of a set amount you're going to need. Hopefully that answered those questions. And so, generally speaking, what I would say in terms of how much protein does a body need, you can take your, so you can do it based on quote unquote reference body weight or goal weight or target weight. Any of those will work. Just, pick. But if you want, you can do reference body weight, which is for every inch over 5 feet, multiply that by 5. So if you're 5'5", that's 25, and then add it to 100. So if you're 5'5", 125. If you're 5 feet, 100. If you're 5'1", 105, right? It goes up from there. And so that's your reference body weight. Or if you're like, I want to weigh 150, then 100, you can pick 150. And then aim for 75% to 100% of that in grams of protein. So as an example, if your target or your reference weight was 150 grams, so 150 pounds, 150 grams of protein would be 1 times, right? And then 75% of that would be just over 100, 110, right? Again, math quickly. So you need to get somewhere in that range in terms of protein. They found, to put your protein over 1 gram per pound of reference weight, there's not a lot of reason to do that for the average human. There are diminishing returns, though. If you're a power lifter or somebody that is really working on body composition, there are some small benefits over that. But there are, as they call it, diminishing returns, right? The benefits go up exponentially when you're going from below your appropriate range into your appropriate range, and then it keeps going up through your appropriate range. But by the time you hit your top of your range, it's just very minimal appreciable gains after that for the average human. So that's how I set protein. Barbara says, do I think that, hold on, my mouth gets dry. I have 2 beverages. Do I think that collagen or protein powders are an acceptable way to meet your protein needs? Well, that is a fabulous question, Barbara. So I don't meet my protein needs, and I don't suggest people meet their protein needs with collagen. Why is that? Well, collagen is an incomplete protein. What does that mean? Well, protein is a collection of amino acids. Like a Rubik's Cube has 5 colors, right? Or 6. Anyway, it's a collection of amino acids is a protein. Right? Is what we call protein, is what we refer to as protein. And of those 20 amino acids, 9 of them are considered essential amino acids. Why are they called essential? Well, in nutrition, whenever we call something essential, it doesn't mean that we need it. It means we both need it and we don't make it, right? So there are some other amino acids that we need, but we make them. So it's great to get them from the outside, but we could live without ever ingesting them because we make them. So, but the essential amino acids mean we have to ingest them because we don't make them. And collagen is an incomplete protein, meaning it does not contain all 9 of the amino acids that we need, the essential amino acids. Now, it can contribute to our amino acids because it's got several other amino acids, several of them, just not all of them. And some of the amino acids that it has make a wonderful complement for a lot of the ways that people eat, which is more of a muscle meat based protein approach. So I certainly think collagen is worth including in your diet. But you know how I said there was a range between 0.75 grams per pound of ideal or reference body weight to 1 gram? I think you want to get to that 75% or that 0.75 with whole foods. And then from there, it's up to you. If you want to top off with some protein powder, with some collagen, with something like that, go right ahead. There are now other protein powders like whey protein powder, egg white protein powder. Those are a complete protein source. And in general, I used to be pretty against the use of protein powders, especially as a drink. I do still think you're better off chewing your meals than drinking your meals. However, if you are somebody that really struggles with getting enough protein in your diet, that really struggles with protein intake in terms of whole food sources of protein, I'd rather you use a good quality shake than not meet your protein macros. But there are significant benefits to getting your protein needs met from whole real foods rather than supplements. And I would consider protein powder a supplement. Now, am I against supplements? No, not necessarily. But, supplements means on top of, not the main shebang, right? So we're better off with whole foods because what a protein powder is isolated, whey protein isolate. They've isolated out the protein. So you're just getting protein with that, unless they've added in vitamins and minerals, like Keto Chow does that. They add in vitamins and minerals to their protein. Um, but most protein powders don't. And so now you've taken, because what, like if you eat a steak, you're getting B12, you're getting vitamin D, you're getting, thiamine, all sorts of vitamins and minerals with that you're getting for a meal. You're also chewing, it's tasty. You've got lots of satiety cues are being hit in a way that they won't from a protein powder. And also you get more well-rounded nutrition. So I guess just to sum it up, get at least to that 75%, that minimal amount of protein from whole real foods. And then from there, I say it's up to you how you want to go. You can keep going with whole real foods, or you can start peppering in a little protein powder. I used to be, I am just droning on about protein powders. I should do a video on this. I used to be very against the use of protein powders because certain types of protein powders, especially whey protein, is very insulinogenic, meaning it can drive insulin up very fast. So whey protein is absorbed very, very quickly. And because of that, it spikes protein muscle synthesis. The bodybuilders love it. So it's perfect for what the bodybuilders need. A lot of people are using it in ways that I don't know is the best. But then I started realizing that a lot of the people that certainly aren't bodybuilders, but a lot of my audience are maybe older women who are dealing with loss of lean body mass and under eating protein on a regular basis. And so that quick hit, even though it's going to drive insulin up a little bit, you know, it's really good for muscle protein synthesis. And so, it's always a weighing of the up, pluses and minuses. And some of my older women clients who are under muscled and are under proteined, the benefit may outweigh that cost. Now, milk protein, there are two types. There's casein protein and there's whey protein. When you eat a dairy product, most dairy is 20% whey and 80% casein. So when you find things like milk protein isolate, you always want if you're going for protein powder, you always want an isolate, not a concentrate. Isolate, not a concentrate. Different quality, but an isolate. So if you've got a milk protein isolate, that Keto Chow does a milk protein isolate. It's mostly casein and 20% and maybe 20% whey. That's how that looks. And casein protein is very different than whey protein. You can act if you buy just pure casein protein, and you mix water into it slowly, it's like cake batter texture, whereas whey is like chocolate milk texture, right? So whey is very thin, casein gets very thick, and so different functions. Um, I don't think pure casein protein is all that pleasurable to drink, but it is good to make pudding out of if you want to do protein pudding. Um, Cottage cheese and yogurt are very, very high in casein protein. Now, the difference between casein and whey, for the most part, is that casein digests very slowly and whey digests very fast. And so they can be useful for different things. Um, and in baking, Ellen mentions they're using them in baking. Yeah, and I used to be against it in baking. I used to be kind of a hardliner about things. I'm not anymore. 5 years into keto, I mean, come on. I think it's like when you have kids and the first one, you're like, we're only using organic diapers, and we are going to Montessori, and like by the fifth kid, you're like, they'll be fine. I've learned that you have to kind of like have a broader scope on things. Hey Nisha, how you doing? Um, and so I'm okay with them in recipes these days. But you can pick your poison. There's all sorts of types of protein. For the most part, I'm not as fond of vegetable-based proteins like hemp or brown rice or things like that. They have protein powders made out of those that are vegan. They're not as good a source of protein as something that comes from an animal. Equip Protein is a brand, and Nisha knows it. She put some of it in her coffee, but they make a vanilla and a chocolate, and I hear they have a strawberry, but I haven't tried that. Those are made from uh, beef protein isolate and some collagen, but it is beef protein isolate, 75%. And so they're a dairy-free option. So if somebody's worried about dairy, that's an option. Keto Bandito says, I intermittent fast with every day for 2 months straight and think might cause my thyroid to downregulate. Um, TSH rose to 9.5. So intermittent fasting is generally just skipping maybe one meal, right? You're eating in a tighter window. Maybe you mean longer fasting. I don't think that just moving your eating window a little tighter for most people would cause that much thyroid dysregulation. Was your thyroid okay before? That's pretty extreme, but I'm not going to discount your experience. If that was your experience, that's intense, unusual. Then I would act accordingly and change your pattern. Um, Nisha loves it. Nisha loves the Equip Protein in her coffee. Yeah. I like it just as a shake. Sometimes when I'm seeking a shake experience, I'll do almond milk or similar, and the Equip chocolate protein and some Element chocolate salt, and whiz that up with some ice, and then I get a milkshake out of it. Um, Brooklyn says, love the Redmond Relight and Element electrolytes. However, they are higher in sodium. That's the point. That's like saying, I'm not making fun of you, Brooklyn, but that's like saying, I really, really like this coffee, but it has a lot of coffee in it. That's the point. So yeah, you do need a fair amount of sodium on a ketogenic diet. Um, so if you're concerned about getting too much sodium, Chronometer is a tracker that you can use to track your macros and your micros, including sodium. So if you put your sodium in there, that being said, most people keto, really or not, but most keto people do best or on average around 5 grams of sodium, which is each one of those packets is about 1 gram. So that's not the majority of the sodium you might need. So we need a lot more sodium than people think we do. And so I feel a lot better on a high sodium, higher sodium diet. There's actually a chart put out by the Pure Studies. There's a study done where they looked at populations around the world, how much they looked at a lot of things, but one of the things they looked at was how much sodium they got and health outcomes. And they found not just keto, but across the board diet around 5 grams was an appropriate amount where people had the best health outcomes. Lower than that, like our government recommends, they were sicker and died more often. A high above that, same. So there's a bell-shaped curve or a bell-shaped curve. And so, yeah, you need more sodium than you think you do. Terry says, I love chocolate salt element and coconut cream in my coffee. Very yummy. Deborah says, is dairy allowed on carnivore? Yes, dairy is allowed on carnivore. Dairy is, in fact, an animal food. And the way I would define carnivore is, did it come from an animal? And if it did, it is carnivore. That being said, not everyone tolerates dairy. And so whether or not you tolerate dairy is kind of a secondary question. If you do well with dairy, great. Keep having dairy as you go carnivore. If you don't do well with dairy, although some people will say they do well with dairy also, when they're on carnivore, they can do dairy in a way they can't do dairy when they're off carnivore. However, if you know dairy is an issue for you, I would not suddenly start eating a lot of dairy on carnivore. Hey, Kathy. Metabolic nurse. I like that. Do I ever coach aspiring coaches? I think about it now and again. I think about doing that. PM me. We can talk about it. I've thought about doing a mentorship program for people that wanted to coach. So give me a give me a give me a hello and we can chat about it. All right, what else we got out there, people? Oh, I'm getting the sun in from the side. I was doing some different experiments on food. I don't know if you can see that. Ooh, I don't even know where the camera is on this thing. I'm doing some like different diet style pictures. So these will be out in a few days on some experiments I'm doing. Anyway, so the food that I was making is in today. I made this. Whoop, zoomed in. So basically, that is what I'm calling a what are they called? Now I've forgotten. A bear claw. A bear claw. I took kind of based on sort of so there's a woman who I forget her name, which I will post her link in the comments. I want to say it's like Indira, but that's not right. She's on. I follow her on YouTube, and she made some things out of the egg white bread that Maria Emmert created, and then used that sort of batter to make hot pockets and calzones. And then I took that batter kind of concept, I changed it because I change everything. And then so it's like a game of telephone that originated with egg white bread. And anyway, so but it's basically like a dough made of I did egg whites and whey protein, and then I put in the middle some cream cheese and flavorings and topped it with some almonds and cinnamon. Anyway, that's it, Susan. Indigo Neely. Indigo. For some reason I have problems thinking that I'm saying indigo. Like Montoya, but I think it's indigo. Thank you, Susan. That was very helpful. And Terry, both of you got it. Wow, it's like we're on the same wavelength. So I filmed myself doing it. It's a bit of a mess. And I'll put that video up soon. Thoughts on egg fast? Asked Ellen. So generally speaking, an egg fast is nothing special. Just gonna say it. It's a limited food. So anytime you limit the spectrum of the foods you can eat, you tend to eat less. So and an egg fast is also limited in the amount of foods you're allowed to eat. So it's just a very low calorie couple of days. And so it tends to work because it's a very low calorie couple of days. It's not magic. If you want to do one, go ahead. Uh, I'm not super into them. I like a little more variety than that, and they're not magic. So I don't see a reason to be super into them. But if you want to do one, you do you. Um, Terry says, "How do you find the right foods to fit the macros that you're trying to go for? How do you fine tune them?" That is the art of keto, isn't it? I spend a lot of time playing macro Tetris, right? So it's like, well, what do I feel like? How do I make it work? Um, and so it's just like I had when I first went keto, I had to think a lot about it, and I wrote a book called Keto Thrive Under 5, which is all the recipes are less than 5 total carbs per meal. So when keeping the carbs really low was my number one concern, that was helpful. I developed those recipes, so you can find that on my website if you want to buy it. You're welcome to. But I put a lot of recipes out for free as well. And then from there, then when I went higher protein, I had to find a whole new food language there to get more protein in. And so it's all about finding what works for you. But the good news is we all seem to eat about the same 5 meals over and over and over again. So it's really about finding those meals that you really love and just keep going back to. And that's really what it's about. Um, Julia says, I need a good brand of D3K2 supplement. I see a lot of them have vegetable oils in them. I'm always a big fan of the company Thorn, which is like a flower thorn with an E at the end. Um, yeah, the egg white bread is pretty dry. One of the reasons, this is Barbara said, so one of the things I did because um, one of the reasons egg white bread is so dry is it has no fat in it. It's going to be dry. But the other part is you have to use a lot of protein powder to make a loaf of bread, right? Because that protein powder is what gives that bread its structure. So if you want it to not sh- shrink, have you ever seen your bread turn into a shrinky dink where the sides of the loaf shrink in and shrivel? That's because it doesn't have a lot of protein powder in it. When you up the protein powder enough so that the bread is firm and not a shrinky dink, then it's super dry. So one of the things I found is I started doing this more like calzone or flatbread where it doesn't need as much structure. And then I can reduce the amount of protein powder I put in it. If you wanted it even less dry, I recommend Sugar Free Mom has a bread recipe. I think it's called Cloud Bread Loaf. It's basically you take the egg whites and you beat the heck out of them, but then separately you're using the yolks. So the yolks and some sour cream then get folded into, and protein powder gets folded into the whites. So it has more fat in it. It's a lot less dry. So there's an option for you. Um, Kiara says, "Will egg whites and protein sparing bread be bad for your hair?" No. Are you of the opinion that egg whites are bad for your hair? Maybe if you have a egg white allergy or sensitivity, um, but not that I'm aware of. I'm wondering what you're referencing. Um, Cassie says, do you know any OMAD or do I do any OMAD or longer fasting? I do not. I do not. I do not do OMAD. I do not do longer fasting. They are not my gig. I don't like longer fasting for myself. I do have several friends who do longer fasting and love it and have a fabulous experience. Nisha, what is Ken saying about egg whites and hair? Anna says he has a video. Did you watch this one? I don't know what they're talking about. Anyway, somebody explain it to me. Maybe I just don't know. Um, uh, so no, I don't OMAD, and I don't a longer fast, and I don't teach that, but I'm not against it if it works for you. No, it's fine, Kira. I just don't. I'm just like I don't know. Terry says I like the 3 ingredient muffins that carnivorous uh, chefs make: pork rinds, eggs, and baking soda. That sounds great. Um, it doesn't affect. Oh, Kira says doesn't affect the biotin if you have too many. Maybe there's an issue with egg whites and biotin, but I don't know. Don't know. Um, hmm, I'll have to. Oh, there we go. Um, Nisha says, "Hi, Avidin. Avidin may be bad for men's hair. Was in a study. Well, interesting. Okay, could happen if you eat a lot. Okay, so I will post a link to that video. Was it a live or a video, Nisha? We'll we'll figure it out. We'll post a link. I know nothing about the topic. Um, so the other question is how much egg white bread are you eating? Be a concern. Okay. So what else? Okay, thanks, Nisha. And then someone asked, are Nisha and I going to be do some coaching soon? Maybe. We are working on something that we'll be announcing soon. So if you're interested in that experience, stay tuned. We'll let you know. Um, all right. What else people got? We got any other questions? One thing I always like whenever biotin comes up as a topic, I always like to bring this up. If you're somebody who's getting their thyroid numbers tested soon and you are taking a vitamin, a supplement, a multivitamin, a something like that, um, um, stop taking your biotin or biotin containing supplement a week before your thyroid test. Actually, a week before any blood test. Biotin will throw off your thyroid test and a few other tests. If you're ever wondering about that, you can Google, uh, if you look up LabCorp, LabCorp has a sheet on each of their tests. So LabCorp, thyroid, whatever the tests are, it'll give you contraindications of the test. Just a little tip. And so biotin is one of their things that you shouldn't be taking when your lab's taken. It's fine for it's not like it doesn't mess up your thyroid. It just messes up the numbers that the blood labs will read. So hold off on the biotin supplements while you're when you're about to get those labs drawn. Um, Junebug says, "Have you or any listeners ever tried Costco's keto ice cream bars? If they're the ones that just say keto real big on a white box, yes, I've tried those. They're delicious." Um, Angie says, if you follow Dr. Nicolantonio, he did an Instagram about the benefits of supplementing inositol. I know what you're talking about. Um, I haven't found any real strong reason to do it, but it might be okay. It might be helpful. I haven't, it's supposed to be helpful for people with insulin resistance. All righty. Well, with that, we're gonna close it out for the day. So thanks for joining me. I'm super happy. It was nice to have Nisha here. And we'll get you those links and I will talk to you guys next week. So enjoy. And I will try and get my booty moving and get that video up on YouTube of the bear claws. All right. All right, guys. I'll talk to you soon. Bye.